It was a very, very touching moment. One of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me. The warmth of her embrace is something I shall never forget.
Hi, and welcome back to the channel.
I'm Cory.
And I'm Wallace.
And we're an early retired couple that are traveling the world. Currently, we're just in Kuala Lumpur.
And today we have come to the Kepong Botanical Garden, here about 12 kilometers or so outside of Kuala Lumpur city center. And we're going to wander around and show you this garden. It's supposed to be full of nature walks and plants and birds, which you can hear in the background, and should be pretty interesting. 2 minutes into this walk, and we've already got a family of monkeys scampering their way through the park.
This place is different from anywhere else that we've ever walked.
And also bring bug spray because I forgot to apply mine and took a bunch of bites already. So definitely do that because, again, definitely don't want dengue fever or any of the other mosquito-borne
No, you definitely
illnesses.
don't. But yeah, there's monkeys everywhere. This is really cool because they're wild, but they seem tame enough that we don't bother them at all. So clearly lots of people come here.
Yeah, and I mean, there's workers in the park. You could probably hear in the background some noise from, weed whippers, that sort of thing, as they're doing grounds maintenance. But overall, very pretty here. So one of the other things they have here is a forest skywalk. It's just a bunch of elevated platforms that you can climb up the stairs and go across these elevated walkways. Main admission into the park or into the botanical gardens was 5 ringgit per person. So 10 ringgit for both of us, which is about $3 and change Canadian. Not very expensive at all. The skywalk though is an extra charge, 40 ringgit per person.
And we're not here at the best time. When we looked on the internet, it said to come in the morning or in the evening because it's basically all out in the sun and not shaded, and that is very true. Pretty sure those are maintenance guys just cleaning up the pond or something, or pulling weeds. That water does not look pleasant at all, so kudos to them for doing it, but I imagine not a pleasant job. We're gonna go check out the skywalk and see if we feel like doing it. We didn't know that it closed. It closes at 3:30. It's currently 3:15.
So yeah, what he was saying is that they close at 3:30 and the last group that they admit through is at 3 o'clock. And like Cory said, it's 3:15 p.m. So we've missed it by about 15 minutes, unfortunately.
He was gracious enough. He said if we wanted to take a look, that we could go in and take a look. So we're gonna take him up on that offer.
You'll have to excuse the noise. There's someone leaf blowing not too far away from us, but this is just a little info plaque on the skywalk. So the towers go up as high as 50 meters, and that's one of the exit towers here. So you'd be climbing up the stairs, up the scaffolding, and then it joins up with these walkways that are way up there and crisscross throughout the park. So kind of cool. It was nice of the guy to come let us have a look. Unfortunately, we don't get to do it today, and we likely won't be back this way. So
if you do come here before 3 o'clock. The scaffolding or the skywalk looks like it's totally worth doing. I'm really sad that we're not doing it.
There's a map of the skywalk here. Just kind of shows where the ticket booth is. You go up and basically just start climbing all around. Looks like it would have been kind of cool. Maybe next time if we're ever out this way again. A little dock here. So it looks like a greenhouse here. Yeah, looks like we can get in there. Let's go. The pond feature in the middle is bone dry. Don't know if that's supposed to be like that. Cool. Don't know what kind of plant that is. There's some fruit there. That's what the sign said, I'm guessing.
It's so peaceful in here.
Yes, very much so. So there is a large, I guess you'd call this a pond. It's not really a lake. In the middle of the park. A lot of birds. We found the climber house, which I'm assuming is climbing plants, but it is under construction at the moment, so not open for business. So what did you think of Kepong Botanical Gardens?
I think it's like super peaceful and totally worth coming if you want to be in the city but not really in the city and kind of go for like a nature walk. This is the place. The grounds are pretty flat. You're not going to have any troubles, and there's lots of wildlife there. We ran into a pack of monkeys, and there's bugs, of course, and stuff.
Lots of birds, yeah. Really peaceful, absolutely worth the price of admission for 5 ringgit each. You know, it's about $1.60 Canadian. I would definitely come back. Only thing I wish was that there was more of the exhibit areas open. So we showed you the climber house, of course, was under construction. There's also a bamboo garden that we couldn't go into because the entrance area was roped off and closed to public access, which is unfortunate, but what are you gonna do? Not much.
And don't forget, if you want to do the skywalk, which we highly recommend, we didn't get a chance to do it, but I would have loved to, come before 3 p.m.
Yeah, 3 p.m. is last call for that because they take guided groups onto that, so make sure you get here well before that if you want to do the forest skywalk. So maybe next time.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And also, as per the website, come in the morning or the evening because there is no shelter and you're in the blazing sun if you do it in the afternoon.
Yeah. So the reason we actually came out to Kepong Botanical Gardens today was because, as it happens, we're in the Grab on our way back to the apartment last night after dinner, and just on the radio that was playing in the car, we heard that Dr. Jane Goodall was doing a talk today here in Kuala Lumpur in a hall that's near this area. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Goodall is the world's foremost expert on chimpanzees. She's been studying them and their behavior for like 60 years. And so when we heard that she was here and doing this talk, we decided that we wanted to get in on that.
No guarantees that we're gonna be able to get in. From what we understand, it's a first come, first serve. And so we're just gonna take our chances and hope luck plays in our favor and we get to see her, because that would be amazing.
Yes, that would. So that's why we're out really early. We've finished our walk here. We're going to go find the location where the talk is being held, maybe grab some dinner, and make sure we're there early to get in line to register. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Crossed.
This is our destination tonight. And where we are currently is the Yayasan Taiwan Buddhist Zhu Malaysia Temple.
In your wildest dreams, did you ever think you would ever go to a talk from Jane Goodall?
No, honestly, I mean, Yeah, this is pretty cool. This was completely random. Like I said, we just heard about this event in the cab last night and didn't know really how to get into the event. Turns out we just show up and here we are. So
I feel so incredibly lucky. Like, this is never even something I considered ever. Because I've watched many things on her. I've listened to many podcasts with her. So this is super exciting.
I agree. I mean, between Dr. Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey, you know, that's where most of my interest in primates and chimpanzees, gorillas comes from. Always been fascinated by them, and it's largely due to those two women. So to be able to see Dr. Goodall in person speak today is really damn cool. So the online registration form that we filled out was everything. We didn't receive confirmations or anything, but she said that we're good to go. We've been allowed in. We've got our little stickers to prove that we're supposed to be here. Because this is a Buddhist temple slash hall, their practice is that you don't wear shoes into the building. So we've been given shoe bags to bag our shoes and carry them around for the rest of the night. We're still pretty early, so we're going to wander around and look at the exhibitions in the hall here. And then I think around 6:45 we get to go upstairs and into the main
Yeah, she
hall.
said no earlier because they're doing dress rehearsal at the moment.
So yeah, very cool.
And that's who she is.
Everyone in here is so friendly. I mean, you know what? They're Buddhists, so that makes sense. But I feel so welcome to be in this building today, even though this is just something we stumbled across. Yeah, no, super excited, very much looking forward to it. Everyone's super kind and friendly and welcoming, and this should be a blast. So we're just here in this exhibition hall, and it's talking about how Tzu Chi started in Taiwan in 1966, and just covers the history and I guess a timeline of the, I guess, religion practice. We're just heading up to level 2 now, to the main hall. This place is actually really big, and apparently they have a presence in over 60 countries and do charity work and humanitarian work in over 130. We're still a little too early to be able to go into the main hall, so we've been directed to just sit here and wait for another few minutes while they're still finishing up dress rehearsals. And this is what it looks like in here. She wants us to fill the front row.
Not sure how. We got front row seats over at the edge, but we can see her. I'll give you a shot. This is crazy.
Front row. I don't know how that happened.
It's just, I feel incredibly lucky right now.
She encouraged them to use their voices and ideas to address the issues they saw head-on. Roots and Shoots was born. Now, Roots and Shoots is a worldwide movement of thousands of passionate young people making big impact, and it's growing.
In our own undisturbed lives, she left everything familiar behind and ended up giving the world a remarkable window into our closest living relatives. She was me. I wanted to come as close to understanding animals as I possibly could. We are continuing our research at Gombe. It's the longest running study of any non-human animal, and we're using some exciting new technology to learn more about chimpanzee ranging patterns and the state of the forest. And this helps to inform decision makers on action to be taken to protect chimpanzees, their habitats, and the other creatures that live there. I flew in a small plane over Gombe National Park and I was absolutely horrified at what I saw. So quickly, it seemed, the environment outside the national park had been utterly destroyed. Everywhere I went, I met young people who seemed to have lost hope. They all said more or less the same thing. We feel like this because we've compromised our future. And so that led into our program for youth, Roots and Shoots. The main message of Roots and Shoots is that every one of us makes a difference every single day. It's been an amazing journey, this life of mine. This planet has filled me with the wonder of all living things, great and small. We cannot ignore this earth that surrounds us, that feeds us, shelters us, replenishes our bodies and our souls, and stretches our imaginations, where animals, plants, air, water, all care for us. We're all interconnected, people, animals, our environment. When nature suffers, we suffer. And when nature flourishes, we all flourish. I do believe in the possibility of a world where we can live in harmony with nature, but only if every one of us does our part to make that world a reality, so that when you look back over your journey, your life, you can truly say, I did make a difference.
Hands together and give us a warm welcome to Dr. Jane Goodall.
Hello, better. Yeah. So thank you for a wonderful welcome. And I'm very happy to be here with you tonight. I think that the Lord Buddha respected all life. And so I thought to bring into this space, maybe for the very first time, the voice of our closest living relative in the animal kingdom. So a special greeting for all of you from the chimpanzees of Gombe. Me, Jane. So my journey has been a long one. In a couple of months I'll be 91 years old. So I can look back on my life I can look back over my life and see that great changes have been made. And the journey of my life has been interesting. It's interesting to me, and it seems to be interesting to other people. But I want to start off by saying that this journey that I've taken couldn't have happened the way it has without help from so many different people. And the one I want to mention first was my amazing mother. I was born loving animals. People say, what triggered your interest in animals? I don't know. I was born loving them. And my mother supported that love, which made such a difference. When I was 4 years old, we were living in London, in the UK, and not many animals there. So for a treat, my mother took me onto a farm in the country, a proper farm, not one of these industrial factory farms, but where cows and pigs were rooting around in the fields and chickens were pecking around in the farmyard. And I was given a job to help collect the hen's eggs. So I go around, I think there were about 4 little hen houses about this high, with the hens striped at night to keep them safe. And around the edge were little nest boxes. So I would go around, open the nest box. If there was an egg, put it in my little basket. Apparently, I began asking questions. Where is the hole on the hen big enough for the egg to come out. I couldn't see a hole like that, and nobody told me. So what I distinctly remember is a hen. She was brown, and she was going into one of these little hen houses. And I must have thought, she's going to lay an egg, so I'm going to find out for myself. And I crawled after her. Well, that was a big mistake. Hens don't want 4-year-old little girls watching them lay eggs. So she flew out with squawks of, I suppose, fear. But now I'm on the path of discovery, and I'm not going to give up. And I go into an empty hen house, realizing the first one is a place now where there's something frightening inside. And I go into an empty hen house and wait. And wait. And wait. Apparently I was gone 4 whole hours, and the family had no idea where I was. My mother was about to ring the police, and she sees this little girl all covered in straw rushing towards the house. And instead of being angry, how dare you go off without telling us, don't you dare do that again. She saw my shining eyes and sat down to hear the wonderful story of how a hen lays an egg. And I tell that story because there you see the making of a little scientist, the curiosity, asking questions, not getting the right answer, deciding to find out for yourself, making a mistake, not giving up, and learning patience. It was all that, and a different kind of mother might have crushed that early scientific curiosity, and I might not be here tonight. We've now been studying with chimpanzees at Gombe for 64 years. So we now know that the offspring of supportive mothers, and the mothers are very different, but the offspring of those that support them, if they get in a fight, the mother will run to rescue them, even if she gets beaten up herself. The males get a higher position in the male hierarchy, and the females are better mothers. So it works for them, and it works for us. And on this particular day, I had just enough money for a very cheap edition that I found of a book called Tarzan of the Apes. No TV back then, no films. But I took it home, I read it, and of course, you know, little girls of 10 are very romantic. And I fell passionately in love with this glorious Lord of the Jungle. And what did he do? He married the wrong Jane. But anyway, I knew it wasn't a Tarzan, but that was when my dream began. I will grow up, go to Africa, live with wild animals, and write books about them. Everybody laughed. How will you do that? You don't have money, which was true. Africa, we didn't know much about it back then. That's 80 years ago. It was known as the Dark Continent, filled with fierce wild animals. And anyway, I was just a girl, but not my mother. What she said to me, I say to young people around the world, particularly in disadvantaged communities. If you really want to do something like this, she said to me, you're going to have to work really hard, take advantage of every opportunity. And then, if you don't give up, hopefully you find a way. So, as most of you know, I did find a way. I left school, no money for university, although I did super well at school actually. And so I had to get a job. We had just enough money for a secretarial course, boring, but my mother had again told me if you're going to do something, whether you want it or not, if you're going to do it, give it everything you've got. So I became a good secretary. And then came the opportunity, a letter from a school friend inviting me to Kenya, where her parents had just bought a farm. No way could I afford that. So the normal way to travel was by boat. So it was a nearly 1 month journey. Suez Canal was closed because of the war between Britain and Egypt, so we had to go all the way around the Cape. And the first place I set foot on African soil, oh my goodness, it was so exciting. It was Cape Town, and the natives were there dressed in their national costume. I didn't realize this was for tourists. I was just excited. The ship was there for 2 days while we renewed its supplies. And there were 2 people there who knew my mother, and they had written and said, "Don't worry about Jane, we'll look after her." And I was been there about, 3 weeks, and somebody said to me, "Jane, if you're interested in animals, you should meet Dr. Louis Leakey, famous paleontologist, anthropologist." So I went to see him. He was head of the Natural History Museum. And how amazing. I talked about that boring secretarial course. Just before I met Leakey, his secretary had suddenly left. He needed a secretary. And there I was. Now I'm surrounded by people who can answer all my questions about, the animals and the plants of East Africa. So I was in heaven. And during that time, he took a little expedition onto the Serengeti Plains, Olduvai Gorge, where he was searching for the fossilized remains of early humans. And one evening, I was out walking on the plains, which I was allowed to do every evening, and I encountered a young male lion, fully grown, hair sprouting on his shoulders. And according to Leakey, when I told him this around the campfire that evening, I'd done just the right thing. So that's when he asked me if I was prepared to go and live with and learn from not just any animal, but the one closest to us. Chimpanzees and humans share 98.6% of DNA. And I was off on my dream. Well, for 4 whole months, the chimpanzees vanished into the forest the moment they saw me. And I was beginning to get desperate because I only had money for 6 months. I knew that if I had time, I could get the trust of the chimpanzees. But did I have time? It was amazing that with just 2 months left, one chimpanzee began to lose his fear. He had lovely white hair on his chin. But back then, Western science had decided only humans used handmade tools. They had described us, in fact, as man the toolmaker. And so this observation of the chimpanzees was very, very exciting. And it was because of that that the National Geographic stepped in and said, "We will fund Jane so she can carry on the research." And thanks to David Graybeard, I began to know the other chimpanzees because he was so calm. I think the others thought, well, she can't be so frightening after all. And so I got to know his best friend, the top-ranking male, Goliath, and Humphrey and Mr. Worswell, and all the rest, and old Flo, her family, and Passion. I got to know them as the unique individuals they are, as different from one another as we are. And that's why I bring these family members with me. Rats, you probably don't like rats much, but they're very intelligent. They make good pets. This is representing the giant forest rat of Africa. And they have been trained to detect the scent of the explosive in unexploded landmines buried under the ground after the long African civil wars. They have helped to clear Mozambique of landmines, and they're now working in Angola, Cambodia, and other places after these long wars. And they also have learned to go under the rubble after an earthquake or a bomb, and if they find a living person, they ring a little bell around their neck, and people can go and rescue that victim. So, highly intelligent. Bigger. If you don't believe me about the intelligence of pigs, then Google not Picasso the artist, but Pig Picasso. And you will see a pig, and she's not different from other pigs. It's just that she's had a chance to show what pigs can do. She loves to paint. Her paintings are selling for $5,000. Her biggest painting sold for $25,000. And the great thing is, if you watch this, how she loves to paint. As soon as she sees the easel, she brushes up, brush is put in her mouth, she dips it into different colors. It's just wonderful. And I could tell so many more stories. Maybe some of you have seen my octopus feature, showing the amazing intelligence of an octopus. But I was in the rainforest. I was learning about the amazing ecosystem, where every plant and animal has a role to play, where they're all interconnected. And I got this really strong spiritual connection with the natural world. And I could have stayed there forever. I thought I would. But then in the mid-1980s, I realized that across Africa, forests were being destroyed and chimpanzee numbers were dropping. And so I knew that I had to do something to try to help, but I didn't know what to do. I got some money. By then, there were 6 other study groups and 6 other scientists studying chimps in different parts of their range. And I got some money and visited those places to learn more about the problems faced by the chimps, like the bushmeat trade, shooting mothers to steal their babies to sell them for pets or for entertainment, or in those days, medical research. And so, at the same time as I was learning about the problems faced by the chimps, I was learning about the plight of so many people living in and around chimpanzee habitat. By the mid-1980s, I looked from a small plane in horror to see Gombe was a little island of forest, and all around were bare hills. More people living there than the land could support. Too poor. Why were they destroying their forest? Because they were struggling to survive. They were either cutting down the trees to make some money from charcoal or timber, or to clear more land to grow more food for their growing families. And that's when it hit me. If we don't help these people find ways of making a living without destroying their environment, we can't save forests, chimpanzees, or anything else. And so the Jane Goodall Institute began a program known as Cory. 7 local Africans were picked to go into the villages, sit down with the people, and ask them, what can JGI do to help you? As they came to trust us, we could introduce water management programs. We got as many scholarships as we could to give girls a chance of secondary education, because back then they had no chance at all in the villages. And best of all, I think, we introduced microfinance. And the villagers have now realized saving the environment isn't just the wildlife, it's their own future. And that program is now in 6 other African countries where JGI studies chimpanzees, alleviating poverty everywhere we go. So by this time, in the early 90s, I'm already traveling the world and trying to raise awareness about the problems in Africa, trying to raise money for our programs. But more importantly, in the long run, I was learning about what we're doing to the planet. And of course, it's got much worse since then. But already, I was learning about the effect of burning fossil fuels, leading to the greenhouse gases, CO2, blanketing the globe, trapping the heat of the sun, leading to climate change, to global warming. And I was beginning to understand the effect that climate change could have. And I was learning about the loss of biodiversity. I mean, where I grew up in the south of England, we have now lost more than 75% of the insects I knew as a child. We've lost almost half the bird species. And this is happening, as I'm sure you all know, all over the world. And then in addition to that, industrial agriculture with its use of chemical pesticides and herbicides and artificial fertilizer, it's destroying the soil. We depend on the soil, but it's being destroyed as I speak because of industrial agriculture. And then there's the industrial animal agriculture. Not only is that unbelievably cruel, I don't know what the Lord Buddha would have said about it, he certainly wouldn't have approved. And this unbelievable cruelty, now that we know these animals are sentient and sapient, intelligent pigs, cows who would, if they could, form long-term bonds with their calves, and so on and so on. And not only that, but these billions of animals that are farmed worldwide in these horrifying conditions, huge areas of land are cleared to grow grain to feed them. A lot of water is used to change vegetable to animal protein. The cattle particularly, but all of them, create methane gas during their digestion. Well, we all do, but cows particularly, because they not only, cows produce a lot of methane gas. And that's a very, very virulent greenhouse gas. I was learning about the poverty, the importance of alleviating poverty, because poor people destroying the environment simply in order to survive. It's just become part of life in certain societies to just take and take and take, overconsumption, making unfair demands on finite natural resources. And then, of course, on top of that, there's discrimination and there's conflict and there's war. And so I talked about animals being very intelligent. Humans are way more intellectual. I mean, just think, no animal can design a rocket that goes up to Mars. No animal can create the internet. And we could go on and on like that. So I don't talk about humans being intelligent, but about us being intellectual, because if we were intelligent, we as a species would not be destroying our environment. And we are. High school students, university students, young people in their first jobs, and they were already beginning to lose hope. And when I talked to them, I said, why are you so depressed? Well, you're destroying our planet, and there's nothing we can do about it. So that's when I began in 1991, the Jane Goodall Institute's program, Roots and Shoots. It's a humanitarian environmental program for young people. And thanks to T.P. Peter and the Jane Goodall Institute team that's here, and maybe we'll get them to come on the platform later because they're doing such amazing work. But Roots and Shoots began with 12 high school students coming to see me in Dar es Salaam. And they came from 8 different high schools. And they were upset about different things. Some of them were upset about the poaching of animals in the national parks. Some of them were upset by the illegal dynamite fishing, where you throw a stick of dynamite stolen from the quarries into the sea, and the fish are stung and float to the top of the water. Some were worried about street children with no homes, or the homeless. Some were worried about the treatment of stray dogs. And so they wanted me to fix it all. I said, well, I'm afraid I'd like to help you. Go get your friends, we'll have a meeting. So about 30 young people came, and Roots and Shoots was born. Main message Every single one of us makes an impact on the planet every single day. And so what started in that small way is now in 71 countries, as I say, including Malaysia. And it's got members from kindergarten all the way through university. So some people are getting very depressed, and I don't blame them. But if we all get depressed, and become apathetic, and give up, we're doomed. Because if you lose hope, then you just become apathetic, do nothing. And as I say, this means we would be doomed. We can't do that to our young people. We've got to find hope to support them. And Roots and Shoots is my #1 reason for hope. Young people, when they are understanding the problems and empowered to take action, they're changing the world. It's not that they can, they are. The trees have come back. And so animals on the brink of extinction can be given another chance. That's happening around the world as well. That's one benefit that I have from this stupid 300 days a year on the road. And then the next reason to hope, this intellect, we are beginning to use it to find ways of living in greater harmony with nature, like renewable energy. And also, we're beginning to use it to think about our own environmental footprint each day. What sort of impact are we making on the world? Can we do better? And then finally, there's the indomitable human spirit. The people who tackle what seems impossible, they won't give up and so often succeed. And there are icons, like Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, and the kind of people that you can bring to mind. But there's also people struggling in an amazing way and inspiring others when they're really physically disabled. And that's why I carry Mr. H. He was given to me 33 years ago by a man called Gary Horn. And Gary Horn went blind when he was 21. And he says, well, don't give up. If something happens to you, there's always a way forward. And he does scuba diving, skydiving, and he taught himself to paint. So Mr. H, whom he gave me 33 years ago, thinking he was a chimpanzee, and I made him hold the tail. Chimps don't have tails. And he said, never mind, take him where you go. You know my spirit's with you. So he's been with me to 63 countries. Spirit. I could tell you so many amazing stories about people, but I want to end this with a very short little video about a chimpanzee whose mother was shot. She arrived in a sanctuary for orphans in Congo, in Africa, badly wounded by the bullet that killed her mother. Her life was saved by our wonderful veterinarian, Rebecca. She interacted with other chimps. She grew to be quite a strong young female. And then she got sick again when she was about 9 years old. And again, Rebecca saved her life. And again, she came to be a dominant female. And she was picked to be released into this beautiful island that's been given to us by the Congolese government. Because in the rescue center where we take the chimps, it's so overcrowded. So now the chimps can be released onto this glorious, glorious big island on the beautiful river. And when you see what happens when her cage is opened and she's released, I beg of you, think how it was for me. Try and feel the atmosphere. Birds singing, the water running by, the leaves rustling in the wind. This magical moment that I'll never forget. So let's end with that. And here she is about to come out into this paradise. She's the 15th chimpanzee to get her freedom. And we hope ultimately to have about 60 on the island. Today is the first time I've met Wuna. I talked to her on the boat, trying to reassure her. She must have wondered what was happening. None of us could predict exactly what she would do once the cage door opened. It was a very, very touching moment. One of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me. The warmth of her embrace is something I shall never forget. For Wunda and all the other chimpanzees we're working to bring here, Chinzula Island will provide a wonderful forest home where they will be cared for and safe.
If you were to leave the earth tomorrow, what would you advise the young people? What would you say to them? What are your life lessons for them?
Well, my life lessons are never give up. That there's always hope. That hope isn't something that just comes to you. It's not like wishful thinking. You have to work. You have to choose something and devote your passion to it. See that you are making a difference, feel even better, get other people in, and change the world.
And what is your dream for the world?
And my dream for the world is a world where war is a thing of the past. There'll always be conflict, there'll always be arguments within families, but actual physical, horrible, killing wars will be ended. Where discrimination will be a thing of the past. That's really what I hope for the future, and that we will understand that protecting the natural world is really important, and that unlimited economic development is not possible in the way we're doing it today on a planet with finite natural resources.
The conservation activist, you must have run into a lot of people who do not agree with you. What happens? What do you do? How do you deal with them?
Well, when people have different ideas from me, which is fine, first of all, I listen to them. Maybe they've got hold of some ideas that I'm good about. Maybe I will change my mind and I listen to them. But if it's so often the case, these people have ideas which I feel are not good for the future of the planet, then I try to reach the heart, because I think it's useless trying to reach the brain. They're not going to listen. I feel it's really important to reach the heart. And how do I reach the heart? With stories. Stories make a huge difference. And I'll tell you a quick one. And this was a man who headed a big corporation, international corporation. And he told me that for the last years he's been really fighting to get his company environmentally sustainable in a country where he sources the goods along the supply chain. Difficult, but he tries. In the way they interact with the officers around the world and the way they treat their customers. For three reasons. One, seeing the writing on the wall. They're using up natural resources in some places faster than nature can replenish them. Two, consumer pressure. People are beginning to ask questions about the products they buy. How was it made? Did it harm the environment? Was it cruel to animals? Is it cheap because of unfair wages? Then they decided not to buy. Does it cost a little bit more? Probably yes, almost certainly yes, but if it costs a bit more, you value it more, you waste less, and human waste is a huge problem. But he said, what tipped the balance, Jane, was at the head of the garden. She came home from school one day, and she said, Daddy, they're telling me that what you're doing is harming the planet. That's not true, is it, Daddy? because it's my planet.
If you had a chance to talk about an animal that you love, what would you pick? Who would you pick?
People think my favorite animal is a chimpanzee, and they're too like humans, so sorry. But my favorite animal is a dog. But of course, you know, dogs are so loyal, so faithful, they do so much for us. But then, if I have to think of individuals, of course the dog who taught me as a child, Rusty, and then also the chimpanzee who really helped me move into chimp society, David Greybeard. Those would be the two individuals I would choose.
What are the lessons that the chimps have taught you in the long course of your studies?
Well, the lessons that I have got from the chimpanzees haven't really taught me much, but have helped me to teach other people how arrogant humanity has been in feeling so superior to the rest of the natural world. And the chimpanzees, because they're so like us biologically, so like us behaviorally, they open the door for people to understand that we are not the supreme different beings we once thought.
Jane, you're 90, and you've lived a long and fruitful life. What makes you wake up in the morning and do everything that you do? What motivates you? What gets you down?
Well, what gets me down is sometimes the schedule has been set and I've agreed to do it without realizing the toll it will take on me. But basically, and I know you didn't mean that, so basically what motivates me is I've got grandchildren. I care about them. I care about the animals on the planet. I care about the forests and the wetlands and the other environments. We now know that not only are animals, insects, really intelligent, we know that trees can communicate, plants can communicate by means of their roots under the ground, or some can put pheromone scents up into the atmosphere. So if they're attacked by a plague of caterpillars, other trees of their species can put toxins, poisons into their leaves that they can better withstand when the plague comes to them. So, you know, it's just so incredible what we're learning about the natural world all the time. It's a very exciting time now because science is finally opening its mind to, well, yes, it's okay to study animal intelligence. It's okay to study animal emotions.
But in these modern times, if a young person were to say, I want to be a conservationist like Jane, I want to spend my life in the forest and not make any money, well, what would you say to him?
Well, to start with young people who want to help the planet, they usually start off by volunteering. But you know, as people get older, they can't make a living, they can't look after family if they're just a volunteer. So there comes a point when you either have to go into an organization that will give you a job. It won't be much money, no. Conservation doesn't give you lots and lots of money unless you're head of one of the big splashy conservation groups. But you will get some money, you'll get enough to live, and then maybe you can work your way up, proving your value to a higher salary. But it's not wrong to want a salary. Some people have said to me, I feel really guilty, I feel I should be devoting myself for free. But we can't just live for free. We have to find some way of getting money, unless we depend on our parents. And there's a limit to that.
I you that the Jane Goodall Institute is most certainly not a flashy organization. How do you think the JGIs around the world, we have 25 of them around the world, how do you think we are changing the world?
Well, 25 Jane Goodall Institutes, some of them, most of them start on a volunteer basis, and then gradually, by what they're doing by the way that they're saving environments or animals or something, then they're able to make requests for a grant, they get some money, and then gradually they're able to pay money to somebody who can actually oversee that organization. Like, in all of our major JGIs, there's an executive director, and they get paid a salary which enables them to do a good job. And that needs to happen all around. So 25 Jane Goodall Institutes, all independent, all signing a charter, declaring a policy that they will, follow certain guidelines and that they won't run off on their own and do things that are against the charter of the main JGIs. And we have a global office. The global office is gathering up information and sharing information and advising the different 25 chapters. And we also now have a Jane Goodall Legacy Foundation, because I need to build up an endowment before I die so that I know that the work I've spent my life doing will carry on after I'm gone.
And I think for many of the questions, many of the people out in this room are feeling helpless and hopeless. And we do not feel the same hope that the children have. How do we as adults grow hope in ourselves? How do we find hope?
Well, if you listen to the talk I just gave, so basically, people will find hope in different ways, and everybody's life experience is different. And some people will find hope much more easily because of the way they've been brought up. They've had things going for them, and they can sort of think hopefully. People who've grown up in really, really tough environments, people growing up in poverty, it's usually much harder for them to have hope. On the other hand, they've been toughened by the tough experiences they've had, and they can be even more determined that they will win through. It's like me, I'm obstinate. I'm not going to give up. Even when certain elections provide results that are damaging or will be damaging to the environment, am I going to give up and just say, okay, go ahead, destroy the country? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm already trying to work on a campaign to reach the hearts of the people who voted in what I think is a mistaken way.
Jane, you're almost 91. What are your plans for the next 10 years?
As long as I live and have reasonable energy and use of my limbs and things, I'll go on doing what I do. If my body fails to do this crazy 300 days a year traveling, I'll gradually slow down. I will pray that my mind stays healthy so that I can do more writing. But then, somebody the other day in an audience of about 20,000 in Canada, I was asked a question I'd never been asked before. Is this the time for this?
Yes.
I was asked a question I'd never been asked before. I was asked, what is your next adventure? So I thought, if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said, I want to go to Papua New Guinea, up in the mountains, where all these new species are being discovered, wild, pristine wilderness. But I couldn't do that anymore, so it's no good wishing for that. So after a bit I said, dying. And there was dead silence, and then a few nervous giggles. And I said, well, if you die, then either there's nothing, in which case that's it, but maybe there's something, which I happen to believe. And if that's true, I cannot think of an adventure more exciting than discovering what that something is.
I think we should end on that hopeful note.
can't believe that just happened. We were in the front row, and she was on the stage, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, wow, what an inspirational person. She's been studying chimpanzees for 64 years. She's almost 91 years old and still going strong. And yeah, that was just really unbelievable that we got to experience this just randomly while we were here in Kuala Lumpur. So very grateful for that.
Yeah, I don't even really have words. I'm still in shock.
Yeah, so I think that's where we're going to end it. Thank you very much for joining. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up to give us a like and subscribe.
And we hope that you'll join us in the next video for more adventures. And until then, stay curious and keep exploring.